everybody. Welcome back once again to Retro Wrestling with Gene Jackson. And I have got a special interview this week. A few weeks back, I spoke with Bubba White over on the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast, and we talked at length about his time as Moondog Splat. But today he returns, and now we're going to talk all about the time he spent as the Mighty Goliath. So welcome to the show now, the Mighty Goliath himself, Mr. Bubba White.
Hey, what's going on?
Not
Glad
much, man. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you again.
Well, man, time is getting closer. Yeah, well, that's getting ready to happen, as a matter of fact. As you are going to be appearing at the KAYFABE Cave, 110 South 1st Street in Pulaski, Tennessee on Saturday, August the 23rd, which, as we speak right now, is just about a week and a half away. You'll be there from noon to 3 p.m., and people can go on right now to the KAYFABE Cave website. You can pre-order your meet and greet, your autograph photos, posters. I think they've even got one that Downtown Bruno has already signed that you'll be able to sign there at the event. So they'll have both of you on there. So, man, it's been first time in 30 years. How excited are you for this?
Oh, I'm still getting more, I guess, worried about what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do when I'm on. Trying to think what's going to be said. You know what I mean?
I got you. Well, yeah, man, I'm planning on making.
But I'm excited though.
Alabama.
Sure. What's up?
So I plan on making the trip up there from Alabama, and I look forward to meeting you. And I know a lot of other people are looking forward to it as well.
Good. I'll be happy. I'll be glad to see you when I get down there.
Well, yeah, we talked. We went really in depth about your time as Moondog Splat last time, and I told you there was so much to talk about. We'd split it into two. So this time we're going to talk about how Goliath came to be, but I guess we'll start at the very beginning. Were you a wrestling fan growing up? What led to you moving towards the wrestling business?
I was a wrestling fan, and then I wrestled in high school, but as I was younger, Bruno Sammartino, the Batman, was on TV, and in fact, my dad went to watch it, and he was on the program, and we waited up to see him go past the guy that was doing interviews at the end, and my dad walked by, and but as you know, me and my brother my younger brother always jumping off the couches, the bunk beds, and jumping on each other, putting a pile of clothes down, throwing the mattresses on top of the clothes, just so we didn't get hurt.
Right.
It really got my mom mad.
But
then I had to go to work after high school and help my dad out. And then after a few years, I said, nah, I got to do something better than this. So I was always training, but I wasn't training at hard at that time. But I started picking up the pace and met a guy that got me in with Guido Mongol.
Okay, that was what I was going to ask, because this is the mid '80s, so it wasn't like there was wrestling schools on every corner like there are now. So I was going to say, how did you find your way in? But there's our answer right there.
Yeah, I was going to the gym, and a guy heard about me wanting to get in the ring, and I was supposed to meet John Sullivan. Anyway, yeah, he was Johnny Valiant. He was with the Valiants and all that.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to meet him at the arena, but I never got a chance to meet him. So I went back to the gym, and this guy goes, I heard you trying to get in. And he wrestled as a dual personality, whatever, as twins. And he goes, here, call Newton Tatry. And I go, Newton Tatry? I thought you said Guido. I know the Mongols, but I go, who's Newton, And so I called him, and he kind of kayfabed me a little bit on what his name was and what he does. Then I told him who I met, and then we started. He goes, okay, come on up. Here's my price. At that time, Dominic DiNucci had a studio going too.
Yeah. And
the Monster Factory that I heard of, that was the only two I knew of that did classes or, trained you,
Yeah, that would be it at that time. So how did they start? I mean, I know I got in the business in like '97 and did some stuff in the like Southern Indies and stuff like that, and they didn't immediately smarten you up. Like I know guys that had their first match before they really got smartened up at all. Like how did the training go? Did they kind of tell you what it was all about right out of the gate, or it kind of ease you into it? Or
I think more eased me into it because I learned some moves and different stuff, but no one really. The philosophy, I guess, the psychology is everybody keeps bringing up when I got in there. And yeah, my first match, I was totally okay, I gotta, try to revent here, And Jerry the King Lawler come up to me and Fred Ottman, Typhoon, and he pulled us both off to the side and was say, hey, here, he starts giving us all the sabadas and all the different stuff that they, talk about. And he said, look, man, you got, you can beat him, but we can't have that. We got to have him, make it look good. So, other than that, I learned a lot after that. Because really, Guido never got in the ring with me and the other guys. There wasn't that many guys at the training facility. There was only maybe a handful, maybe 6, 7 at a time that would ever be there. And a few managers like Bruno would come by, and then another guy that did some refereeing, Brian. He was in the WCW, Brian Hildebrand.
Oh yeah, Mark Curtis.
Yeah, Mark Curtis. Yeah, and he wanted to, he was always up there doing some little things on the side of the match. And then that's when Bruno come to me and says, "Hey, they want you down in me and you down in Tennessee with the CWA," which I never heard of the CWA. So I said, "Oh, let's get ready,"
Yeah, that's something I was going to ask you. Is Memphis has a huge reputation with Southern wrestlers and Southern fans, but I wondered if in the Northeast, if anybody really had any perception of Memphis at all.
All I know is that, you got to go through Memphis to get to the WWF is what I heard, at the gym and whatever. They say, you got to go down there, get your, get your act together, get your, whatever ring presence going, and then go from there,
Well, I mean, it's hard to name anybody that made it big that didn't go through there at some point, really. Just about everybody did. Yeah. Especially in that era.
Yeah, I mean, I see some stuff on, on the TikTok here and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, he was down there. I never knew, But yeah, hey, I had my tryouts with the WWF. It just didn't work out,
Now, you did have a tryout, like to be one of the hillbillies, like Hillbilly Jim and Uncle Elmer. Was that before you went to Memphis, or was that after?
Yeah, it was before. That was like almost a good year before, because that was like in November of 84, 85. And then I went, that's when Bruno, the next September or October, when I come down there, that's almost a year. So, and I still didn't get as much good training from when I went up to the WWF to be a hillbilly and when I went down to Memphis,
Yeah. I mean, who better than Lawler? Because, I mean, Lawler can work with anybody. Yeah. And, gosh, I mean, if there's anyone who understands the psychology of wrestling and can pass it on, he's definitely the guy. So
I have a lot of respect for Jerry. He taught me a lot, talking to me in the back, in the locker rooms and stuff like that, and at the TV station before we, went out to do the live TV. And I thought I was catching on. I thought I caught on pretty well. So, and then I broke my leg. So,
yeah. What was easier for you to pick up, the physical aspect or the psychological aspect once you started catching on to that and learning that side of it?
I'd say that the physical part was easier for me, picking up guys, me getting picked up. I just had more thought. I remember having a match with a new guy to come in, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Anyway, he goes, "Hey, go out there, have a match," and I couldn't even talk to the guy. So I'm like, I called it. I said, "Okay, I'm going to call this whole thing," because he's newer than me, and so I put the whole match together in the ring, and I got out, and he came back up to me and goes, man, you got to start doing this all the time. So he goes, that was good. Good match. So, and that way he was in the business too. I'm trying to think of Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law.
Eddie Marlin?
Eddie Marlin, yeah. Man, too many hits to the head again. I'm sort of, bing, bing.
It's
the brain's dysfunctioning.
So,
but Eddie Marlin, he was also a good guy too. I always had respect for Eddie.
Oh yeah, definitely. So they pair you and Bubba up, and I mean, the visual of you and Big Bubba, and then little Bruno, and Bruno could go out there and talk all the shit he wanted to. He could do whatever, and wasn't nobody going to get their hands on him as long as Big Bubba and Goliath was standing there. The downtown connection. I remember as a kid, I was about 10 years old when you guys showed up there, and even though I was a typical fan. I mean, I love Lawler and all that, but I always enjoyed seeing you guys. Just like, God, these guys are so big. How's anybody going to beat them?
Yeah. Well, we both over 400 pounds.
Yeah.
So I was probably more than what they said I was, but I never got weighed. So I knew I was over 400. That's all I could tell you.
Speaking of that, so did you and Bubba travel together, and how challenging was that to get vehicles that was comfortable for you guys to ride all over this territory?
Well, Bruno had a car. We rode with Bruno for a while, me and Bubba. And Bubba had his Jeep. Okay. So me and Bubba started taking a Jeep, and Bruno had somebody else in the car. So we all just kind of left our separate ways. And me and Bubba started riding together, and talking over what we're going to maybe do in the ring, what we do tonight, whatever's going to go on in the ring. If it's the same, what happened on TV last week, let's try to change it up here in Louisville and different in Evansville too.
Yeah.
Besides, you got to try to at least do something. A lot of times, I remember the first couple of times down there, we did the exact same match as we did in Memphis. The next week, we did the exact same match in Louisville.
Yeah.
So, and then people were starting to, I guess, catch on to that. We all tried to change it, I guess, we're told, hey, different finish, but have some different stuff in the middle,
Yeah, because I guess that was challenging. They had what they call bicycling the tape, where whatever you did in Memphis this week, you did that on Monday, but for the rest of the week, you were doing what you did in Memphis the previous week in Evansville, Louisville, Nashville, around the Horn, and then you start over again. So I guess, and I know Bruno did most of the talking, nearly all the talking, I guess. But you got to keep up when you do these promos. Like, oh, wait a minute, what town is this? What week are we on? Or you're not talking about the wrong match. So I've always been
good at it now because I have too many brain lapses. But back then I did talk on the mic, and they told me to take care, do it more, So, and then I broke my leg.
Yeah,
I think I got a couple of times when I got on the mic, and that was it.
Yeah, which made it really stand out when you did. It was like, oh, he said something. He means it. This is unusual.
That's the way I usually am with people when I was bouncing. If I tell you something, you
start talking.
Speaking, you better listen.
I can see that, man, for sure. Now, you turned up as the super heavyweight champion, and I was always curious. It's really a really nice belt. It's just like all of a sudden you were champion, and I don't know if I missed it or what, but they never really talked about who you beat for it. And so where did you win that? Where did that go down? Or was that one of those phantom things?
Yeah, it was a phantom thing. As I supposedly beat Abdul the Butcher for it.
Right.
And that's what they were, behind us, in the studio at the TV that time. And they're, and they had a tournament for the belt after I had it off of Abdul the Butcher. But then they had a tournament for everybody else. Uncle Elmer come back, Scott Hall come in there, Jerry Blackwell. So there was like an elimination process, tier, and then I ended up wrestling Uncle Elmer, and he won the belt back.
Yeah,
it was his belt.
Okay,
he wanted $2,500. He wanted $2,500 for the belt, and I'm like, he goes, "Oh, you can do it if you take it. You can take it to any territory, anywhere, and that's your belt. And then you get to wrestle somebody for it and then win it back. I'm like, $2,500, buddy. I don't have right now. That was just when I was getting in. I said, I don't have $2,500. I went down there almost broke.
Yeah,
down to Memphis. So, in
I
fact,
mean, it was
I borrowed a lot of money off of Bruno. I mean, I owed Bruno a lot.
Yeah,
I wrecked his car, but I also paid him all back. I mean, he bought me food when we first got down there, and I my first paycheck, boom, paid him back.
Yeah. Yeah, you worked with Uncle Elmer, and we talked a little bit about him last time. But how you got down there and you worked for several people. Now you're in the ring with Uncle Elmer. How was that?
He wasn't. I mean, he was okay. I mean, easy to work with. I mean, he doesn't do much.
Yeah.
But I had some good matches with him, and then one time I forget it was almost near the end of I was working with him. And he goes, man, I want you to hit me with a forearm across the chest. Man, you hit me hard, man. I'm like, dude, I hit you pretty hard. I'm like,
yeah,
geez, I know my forearms look good, because I'm bringing them from way back and hitting them. And I thought I hit him pretty good. And I thought I told you, and he hits me with a forearm. Yeah. Was I expecting it? No, I thought he was going to work a forearm on me. He blasted me. But I didn't fall down. I stumbled backwards and tied myself up in the ropes. And the referee's like, what the? And then we heard a boom. And Uncle Elmer's on his back looking like a turtle upside down. He couldn't get up. He was like wiggling around, waving his arms. And finally he grabbed onto the rope and he pulled himself over. And the referee helped keep me in the ropes because I didn't get into the twist there.
Yeah,
too good with my arms, and he put them in for me. Then Uncle Elmer come over and started beating the hell out of me. You something, I told you. And then he grabbed me in the locker room at Memphis Coliseum. He tried to tell me this and tell me that, and then Jerry King Lawler pulled me in his room. Goes, don't listen to him. I go, I ain't. I know what I can do. I know my punches. I never hurt anybody. So why should I? Why do you want to hurt him? He's a big guy, but I'm sure he could take it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I didn't. A lot of people talked about him like he's a this and that, and didn't like him or whatever. He's got a lot of hot wind, And I say, well, I don't bother with that. Everybody's a tough guy. There's always somebody tougher than you. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, people talk about
there's always somebody to take the crown.
Yeah. About him being a hustler and trying to sell fake watches and shit like that. But it's like most wrestlers are hustlers. I forgot about that level.
I forgot about the fake watches.
Oh yeah. That's why I figure that belt, it probably was worth a couple of grand. It's a really nice belt back in that time. But I promise you, Stan Frazier didn't pay $2,500 for that belt. There's no telling how he came about having it.
I would say it probably maybe. I don't know what a belt costs. Like Jerry's belt down there, the Mid-South, tag team champions. I don't know how much they charge to make him. It's leather and steel with some paint on it, or some glowing paint or whatever, shiny paint and some shiny gold paint to make it look good. But other than that, how much is it really?
Yeah.
I figured it was only worth maybe $1,000 at best, but
yeah, well,
I get it. I would have loved to have taken it. I would have loved to have bought it, and then I could have come back to Pittsburgh with it, and use it in the indie things back here.
Because it was a lot nicer belt than what Lawler and them were using in the territory. It looked like one of Vince's belts,
It was big. That belt was super heavy. I mean, if you thought it was heavy, it was definitely heavy. It definitely weighed something, It had the big main thing and then four little medals around it, It definitely was made for a big guy because it could fit around me.
Yeah.
I usually
I'm glad that's one of the pictures that's floating around out there is you with that belt. That's cool.
I mostly carried it to the ring, But it was a nice belt. I will say that. I wish I'd have it today.
You mentioned Jerry Blackwell. That's another big guy you worked with around that time. I've never heard anybody say a bad word about Jerry Blackwell. How was he to deal with this in general?
He was great. I just met him and we were, getting into a little program there. And I we were down at the Mid-South Coliseum. We were doing interviews, and Jerry walked in. I'm like, I heard you pretty stiff. I said, yeah, give me a kick to the stomach, And he definitely kicked me, but I turned around like making it like, oh, okay, if that's what you got. Yeah. But it wasn't. I mean, if that's what he got, I can handle that in the ring. Yeah. But he definitely threw some clotheslines on me, man. I mean, choke. I mean, I was down on the ground, trying to get air. He goes, "You okay?" I go, yeah. But I was okay. It just, man, he caught me so good with it around the neck. I even tried to speed up my kick out before he get his arm to my face. It didn't work. He got me again. I'm like, oh. So
how was that damn drop kick?
What's that?
How was that drop kick of his? He's not somebody you expect to throw a drop kick, but he could get up there in people's face with him. Yeah,
I think he did that like the back where he jumped up and then just kicked forward. I wasn't sure because he just kicked me in the stomach. I don't know if the match we had a drop kick in there or not, but they great matches with him. So then all of a sudden he was gone. All of a sudden he left the territory. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, by 87, he may not have been through with them drop kicks anymore. Now that you mention it,
I was wondering if he had some type of maybe not feeling well too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, we had great matches, and I wouldn't know, but it just seemed like he wasn't there when we were talking together. Like he had something else on his mind. Which a lot of the guys do.
Now, somebody else you had a singles match with there that people seem to kind of run hot or cold on. They either really like him or they really don't. Austin Idol.
Yeah, Austin, another great guy. Like Jerry had a lot of ring presence. A lot of psychology in that ring. And we went out to dinner one time. Me, Austin, Big Bubba, his wife, and his kid. And we had a nice dinner and had a nice talk at the table. And then we went to the zoo together.
Oh, wow.
Him and his wife and his kid. Yeah, we went to the Memphis Zoo.
That had to be fun.
The gorillas were trying to break out of the glass case they were in. They were slamming into the I guess, bulletproof glass, you want to call it. But I swear it looked like it was 4 inches thick. And we weren't even standing. Me and Bubba weren't even standing there. Austin's next to him. And we're standing there like, what the heck's going on with them gorillas? And this gorilla runs from the back and slams into the window, and it starts going, whoop, 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 And I went, whoa, that glass better hold that, So then I guess one of the zoo people come up and goes, hey guys, I don't know, that glass is supposed to be strong enough to hold him because I don't like the way that was looking either. I go, we're leaving. He goes, yeah. I said, I'll outrun him. And I pointed to Bubba. He goes, no, you won't. I said, yes, I will, because I'm going to trip you. But, we had a great time. I mean, Austin, I never knew he was in that accident until, I first met him. I said, he was on a plane and it crashed. I go, wow. That was something to survive it.
Yeah. And basically come back a whole new man. Because, I mean, if you look at Mike McCord and then Austin Idol, you'd never guess that was the same guy. And he certainly never guessed he's, suffered injuries in a plane crash.
It was like Ric Flair when his first pictures. I went, that's Ric Flair. I looked at somebody goes Ric Flair when he was. I went, no, that ain't. And then I looked deeper and seen his eyes. That is him. He was like heavy. He was like a chubby guy, kind of.
Yeah, it's wild to see those pictures of him back when he was running around training with Ken Patera, like lifting, like heavy lifting and all that.
We'll return after these messages.
Relive the glory days of Memphis wrestling with the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast. Each week, we go back in time to review USWA Championship Wrestling from the 1990s, episode by episode. Join us for watch-alongs, behind-the-scenes stories, and exclusive interviews with people who were there and lived it. Whether you grew up watching it or you're discovering it for the first time, this podcast is your ringside seat to Memphis wrestling history. It's all a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Listen now at USWApodcast.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling. the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Tired of the same boring wrestling podcast? Need something with attitude, chaos, and maybe just a little cussing? That's stspod.club, and we got it all covered. We've got wrestling weirdness with WTF News Desk, 5-minute time limit, and the Southern Fried Brain of me, BT, stirring the whole ship. We also have rolling into Mempho every week about the current Memphis wrestling. Interviews, hot takes, and wrestling outrageousness so wild it might get you banned in 12 states. That's right, it's SDSpod.club, or search all podcast catchers for Shooting the Shiznit, where wrestling podcasts grow chest hair. Not sure what that meant. Love my mama.
So here was an interesting result I came across from January 20th, 87. It says, 6-man tag team combined boxing and wrestling match. The Memphis Vice, Jerry Bryant and Lou Winston, and Emily Arthur versus the Downtown Connection, Big Bubba, Goliath, and Downtown Bruno. Now, how does a combination boxing wrestling 6-man tag match work exactly?
You know, I do remember doing it, but I can't remember the specifics of the match. Yeah. But I remember Bruno getting hell beat out of him from that girl. She slapped him, man. I was in we were at another match. I guess it was we were like the Lumberjacks. Yeah. I think they had a lumberjack with her and him and that girl. And this girl, I mean, she turned around and whacked him, which we knew it was coming. You know, we already worked it out in the back. And man, Bruno's, he flew right towards us. It was he wasn't selling. That was what she hit him with. He goes, Jesus, because me and Bubba grabbed him and held him. He's like, man, she really hit me. I go, oh, yeah, she don't know what she's doing, buddy. I don't think she's ever been in the business.
Bruno can take a hit because he took some in his day. You go back and watch some of that stuff, especially those women, Emily Arthur, Miss Texas. He took his fair share of beatings. He earned it.
Yeah, he didn't like it. I will say this. He was kind of skeptical about getting in the ring with a girl. What's going on? I guess trying to figure out what the promotion was trying to get out of it, which me and Bubba just shook our shoulders like, hey, we don't know, don't look at us. We're still in the black too. We can't see either. We can't figure out what's going on. And next thing you know, we're in the King's court there with Brown. What's that? Brickhouse Brown.
Oh, Brickhouse.
He was our prince. And Bruno turned into the Jekyll. I was like, what the heck is going on? And then here I was Goliath and had to get some costume made up, which I couldn't get it done in a week. But I didn't realize you could I should have just went to a costume place.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know. I'm like, who could make me a uniform to look like Goliath? I don't. And Jerry King Lawler came up with it. He get ready as soon as that day coming into the studio. He goes, here, This is going to be your new outfit for Goliath. I said, wow, dear. I didn't know what was going on. I said, I couldn't get the guy to get done with my project that I had him doing. And I said, I think he ripped me off, which he did. The guy, I never seen the guy again. And he had my $100 and something to get things started. You live and learn.
Yeah, well, that was sadly pretty common with a lot of those gear makers and different people like that on the peripheral.
Wrestling. I'm sure everybody that's been in wrestling, somebody's coming up to offer you a big deal and say, "Hey, you give me 10,000, I'll make you 50." And then there goes your 10,000.
Yeah,
I have seen that a lot in life. So
that loop of the Memphis territory, what was besides the spot towns and then the weekly towns, what was some of your favorite spots besides Memphis that you enjoyed working in?
I like Nashville and Louisville. Evansville wasn't such a big payday, but it was big. I mean, not big, but I mean, you had a lot of place to talk behind the stage and keep everything, under the blanket, I guess you want to call it. But I like Nashville because when we're done Nashville night, on Saturday night, you got out at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
And me and Bubba didn't drink, but it was nice to just get back to home and get some sleep, Yeah. Saturday night was our extra night to get a little extra,
Yeah, I heard that. Bill Dundee's old partner, George Barnes, they came in there as the Australians and caused a ruckus in the 70s. And then Barnes went back to Australia. And then in 87, he returned and had a feud with Bill. I know you teamed with Barnes a few times there. How was George Barnes? Was he like the guy he depicted on TV?
Even now, I mean, not really depicted on TV. Back in the back, good times, good conversation. Talk about this, talk about that. How they like that, last week at that match. Hey, was that a good crowd? I thought he was a nice guy. I didn't have no problems with him.
I've just always been curious. I haven't never had a lot of insight on him, but you hear some interesting stories about him from over the years. But
I didn't even really know that. Bill. I didn't know he tagged with Bill Dundee. I thought Bill Dundee was a superstar all of his life.
No, they came in. Yeah, they came in as the big heel tag team from Australia. And got over huge and was big box office. And then George got homesick, went back home to Australia. And that's when Bill, I'm trying to think who dubbed him the superstar. If it was Jimmy Valiant or somebody. And then he took off and, became the superstar on his own. And then George came back. I don't think it was ever intended to be more than what it was, just like come back for the summer or whatever. But
when I broke in down there, the sheep herders were there. Jonathan Boyd.
Oh, yeah.
And a guy from Pittsburgh, they called him Bigfoot. And he went down there before I did, like probably maybe 2-3 weeks. Then we heard in the background that, I don't think they were going to keep him. When I was, in the locker room, we heard a little stuff behind everything. I'm like, I looked at Bruno, I said, poor Bigfoot, man. I didn't see anything really. But then he didn't have the ring psychology. Guido didn't teach him, nobody taught him. We just, everybody just did moves. But you got to have psychology. What are you trying to present to the fans out there? So
yeah.
And you have to think like that. What's the fans perceiving? So
what kind of guy was Jonathan Boyd?
He was great. I rode home with him a couple times. We talked about the business. He was good, but he was crazy too, man. He opened up hard way on TV with the belt. He kept smacking himself in the head with the belt. Next thing you know, all his blood's coming. I go, man, he just cracked his head with that steel belt. I go, man, he's crazy. But he had tattoos. He was getting his tattoo before I broke my leg, and it was all his whole back.
Yeah.
And I said, man, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of time. He goes, oh, I still ain't nowhere near done. I don't know if he ever got it finished or not. You never got to see Jonathan after that. So he was a good guy. Even Tojo Yamamoto, we rode together, and he gave me a little insight to the business. Calm down. He goes, you're a big man. Relax. Don't get like that in the locker room. Save it for another day. I was mad. I don't know what happened that night, but I was pissed.
Yeah.
And Tojo goes, hey, why don't you ride home with me tonight? And I'm like, oh, here, I'm going to get the office here. Because Tojo was considered office. He's been around so long. Everybody said he had a little ear, in the office that people listened to him, so.
Oh yeah, he was tight with Jerry Jarrett, so I'm sure he was right there with him.
He always brought up matches between him and Jerry, what they did, and this is what we do. This is what we made it good. Jerry just sell it, man. I'd beat the hell out.
It's funny. He was really memorable because around Memphis, around Nashville, and then even down here in Alabama, like Birmingham, where he worked down here for Gulas, people of a certain age, you mentioned wrestling, and one of the first names out of their mouth is, "Oh, I remember old Tojo with those wooden shoes." He made an impression on people.
I was amazed how he walked on them things.
I know, right?
Don't they hurt? Oh, that's the way to do it. I wore these shoes all. I'm like, man, I don't know. Give me a pair of nice slippers, man.
Yeah, he was a tough guy just to walk around in those shoes.
I'm sure. I bet he had some matches he could talk about, but I remember he destroyed some guy on TV. The kid was in the back, a jobber, and he started talking. He's a 6-degree black belt. He feels no pain, and I can see Tojo looking out of the corner of his eye, going, "Oh." So he turned and goes, "Oh, you black belt, huh?" And I guess they threw him out of the ring, and Tojo beat the hell out of him with that kendo stick. And I felt bad for the guy. He was so open up back and front. And then Tojo come back and goes, "Hey, I think you need some rubbing alcohol with that? You want some alcohol to clean that up?" And he goes, "No." And he ran out of the locker room grabbed his gear and ran out. I don't even think he waited for his pay.
Yeah, there's a few stories of different guys over the years who decided it wasn't for them and just grabbed their bags without changing and hit the road.
Yeah.
I guess that's the way to do it sometimes. You and Bubba had some matches with the Midnight Rockers, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels. Did you have any inkling that Shawn Michaels would go on to be the megastar that he turned out to be?
I thought Marty Jannetty had a better between the two. I thought Marty was the better, nicer guy, and he'd really into and he'd do his moves and everything in the ring. It seemed like me and him, everything was smooth. But then at the end, we were done with our matches. Shawn, he come up and shake your hand, boom, walk out of the room. I'm like, man, did I do something wrong in the ring? But I guess that's his personality. But then I met him again. I went to a WWF match, and I was in the locker room, and I was ready to walk out and just see who was out in the hallway. And here he come out from behind his curtain in the locker room. I said, "Hey, Shawn." He turned around, didn't know who I was, and I said, "Goliath." And he hurried up and ran, walked away. Didn't even kind of acknowledge me. But But if you ain't with the WWF, everything's kayfabe. If you're walking in, no matter if you're with another league or not, you don't get to hear anything. In fact, I got kicked out by Tony Garea in Pittsburgh. I was back there talking, and all of a sudden I was sitting on a bench. I was talking with Jeff Jarrett, and the Men on a Mission. We were in a room, and all of a sudden I hear something in my ear. "You got to get out of here. You ain't allowed in here." I turned at Tony Garea right in my face, and I said, "I'm one of the boys. You ain't one of the boys here."
Wow.
I said, "Okay, man." I said, "I'm leaving. You don't have to tell me twice. I'll get out."
What a prick. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I was in there before. I was in that locker room before with Jerry the King Lawler, Macho Man, and Kurt Angle. Kurt
Hennig.
Yeah. They were in a shower stall. One of them had a beer. I'm not going to say who had a beer, but I see a Budweiser can come out behind a curtain. They're like, "Who?" I said, "Hey, I just want to let Macho Man know that one of the Penguin guys were out there with his kids. He couldn't wait any much longer." I said, "You said you were going to sign an autograph for him." They look at me like I'm some type of clown. I guess I was a clown by going back there and, "Hey, ain't you going to sign an autograph for the dude?" Macho Man, you're really going to turn this guy down. He's a Pittsburgh Penguin, world champions.
Yeah.
And he never went out. The guy would go back out. I said, "Yeah," he said he's coming. We stood there for about 5 minutes. The Penguin hockey guy, he left.
Wow.
Those kids. I went, "What the hell, man? That's jive."
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd sign an autograph for your kid, Macho Man.
Yeah, you hate to see that when people kind of forget where they come from and, get too big for their britches, so to speak.
Yeah, Macho Man wasn't. I didn't see him around in the locker room that much when he was down there on a couple matches with us. And he stayed away, more or less away from us. He didn't come over to jag around or say something about, whatever. He mainly stayed near Jerry the King Lawler, and I guess they're working their match out or whatever. And they talking old times,
I've always heard he was an odd guy in general, so that kind of tracks from everything I've ever heard.
I'm sure he was on some heavy shit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, there's no doubt.
So I'm gonna run down some names of guys you worked with while you in Memphis as Goliath, and just give me kind of your first thought or any funny stories you might have about them. First one on the list is Pat Tanaka.
Pat. Yeah, one of the first guys I really worked against, I think singly, before me and Bubba got together. Mm-hmm. Pat, great guy. Loved Pat. He got me out of more situations with my neck. Him and Sato was always cracking my neck. I was shoulders, whatever. But Pat, always a good guy. He was funny because he always had some girl or two girls in his room. I went down to his room. I said, "Hey man, I need you to grab me." Man, I'm busy. I see you are. How about sharing, brother? But he goes, "Come down in an hour." And he twisted my neck with that towel, and man, I felt so much better. But Pat, he told me to throw him in the ropes and give him a bear hug. After I chased him around the ring for like four laps, and I get in the ropes, I catch him, I throw him in. He goes, "Bear hug." And I was bear hugging him. I'm like, okay. And I'm talking. I'm like, "All right, ear slap, brother." He goes, "No, not yet, not yet." My legs were blowing up from running, from running, whatever. I don't know, I don't really know because I had another match with him and it went way better than that. But I dropped him. I said, I can't. So I kind of like slammed him on his back. And I grab him. He's like, "Do it again." I go, "What? You want me to throw you in a bear hug again?" I'm like, "Oh man, I'm gonna." So I throw him in. This time I was holding him on about the same length. He finally slaps his ears. I'm like, "Jesus, thank you." And I sold the shit out of him slapping my ears. But he was a great guy. We played cards. Back in the locker room, we played spades. Hearts.
Yeah.
And everybody was the best player. "Don't you know what you're doing? You don't know how to bid?" I'm like, "Dude, you taught me what each card's worth." I said, "I got my 5. I didn't know I had 7." But man, everybody took it seriously, and betting on it and all that stuff. So
Pat was super talented. He's one of those guys. I think if he would have been a foot taller, he probably could have had a whole different career.
Yeah, great worker. I mean, he was as good as anybody, and I mean, Pat could work. And I didn't see him at the gym a lot, so I never seen him get really tired. Get blowed up in the ring. In any match where they were fighting, for 10 minutes outside the ring.
Yeah.
And he, like I said, very, very good ring guy. He definitely called a good match for you. To make it
now another guy.
It helps him out if he makes me look a little bit good, and then he shines at the end when he wins.
For sure. Another guy that I don't know if you worked against him, but I'm sure y'all are. I think y'all were kind of in a stable together. But he was a million different mask gimmicks over the years in Memphis, and I got to be around him a lot later in the '90s. Don Bass.
Oh, love Don. A lot of good conversations in the back and hearing stories. I would have just loved to sit next to him. In the locker room, get a locker, next to him and sit there, down and listen to him and get a little insight on, if you go, "Hey man, why don't you do this in that match instead of doing it that way?" And I always liked this match. He just didn't do much. I mean, he wasn't like overly killing with clotheslines or punching or kicking. He just had the little moves flipping the guys around and then he'd take his bump and whatever happened, or hit him with the guitar. I remember he had that guitar thing.
Singing Cowboy.
Singing Cowboy, yeah. But what a great guy. He was really so nice in the background. I don't know what other people thought about him, but I always liked when he was on a card, and we were in the locker room together.
I've never heard anybody say a bad word about him. He's so entertaining. Like I felt like after wrestling, he could have had a career as a comedian or in some other form of entertainment because he was just hilarious. And like you said, he had so many stories, like a Jerry Lawler or something,
Yeah. Now that you say that, yeah, he could have definitely been, because he had stories, jokes, and little tidbits, he'd throw in there. And, when I was down here, when I was over there. And I always enjoyed sitting with Don Bass. I really liked him. I really missed him when I broke my leg. So I'd like seeing him every once in a while in a card in Arkansas. He was on. I don't know where he lived, but it seemed like anytime we were in Arkansas or Mississippi, Donnie Bass was on one of the cards,
He was over there close to West Memphis, I believe, or at least the time I knew him. Of course, he referred to it as Greasy Corner, Arkansas, but it was just outside of West Memphis there.
Okay. Yeah, right next to Sid.
Yes. Neighbors with Sid. They could have played softball together.
Yeah.
Well, he was in a little bit around that time as Lord Humongous, and this would have been like right at the beginning of his career as well. How was he at that point?
Oh, great. We lifted together. In fact, me and Bubba, went over to have dinner at his house with his wife and his newly born son. And he got some steaks, grilled out, had baked potatoes. And we lifted at that gym in Memphis a lot when we were down there. And he was a good guy in the locker room too. Sometimes, something's on their mind. They don't talk to you right away, and you kind of walk away like, well, they're mad at me. But then the next hour, he's talking to you like old buddies. But when I met him in the WWF, he seemed like, I went up to him. I said, "Hey, what's up, Sid?" He said, "Yeah." Didn't seem like he was too enthusiastic about seeing me, Yeah. He goes, "Oh, what'd you do?" I said, "Oh, hey, I broke my leg and went back to Pittsburgh, and I'm just trying to get back in it, brother." And next thing you know, he just got up and walked away from me. So, like, he didn't say, "Hey, good talking with you," and walk away. I just gave a kind of look like, "Well, I guess he has more important things to do."
Yeah,
that was down in Wheeling.
I got you. Here's a guy that everybody I talk to has a lot of fun stories about. I know you and Bubba wrestled him and Jeff Jarrett a lot. Billy Travis.
I didn't have no problem. Billy tried to get, I guess, too much. Jeff was cool. Yeah, really didn't have many problems with Billy, except for when he wanted me to. He goes, "Let me pick you up and slam you." And then, thank God, somebody was right there around there and said, "Hey, man, you don't want to be slammed by him." I said, "Well, they're the tag team champions, And he goes, "No, you save that slamming for Jerry the King Lawler." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Oh." He goes, "Well, just that's it. Don't let him do it." And I'm like, I said, "Okay." And then he wanted to do it. He tried. And I'm like, "Hey, dude, I'm not doing it, bro." He goes, "What?" And he started getting a little bit, physical. But I go, that ain't nothing. If that's the hardest you can punch, then you should not be in wrestling. But like I said, I've never had a problem. As soon as we talk about the match, getting things together for the match, I didn't have no problem. If he come up and said, "Hey, do you want to do this double flip over, or I come off the top rope or whatever, and drop kick you, then you go down, and then we go into this or whatever." I said, "Hey, I'll do that. We could do that." So I liked working against Jeff and Billy, but then that was short-lived too.
Yeah. We mentioned his name earlier when I mentioned George Barnes, but how was Bill Dundee to work with?
I only got a couple times to work with him. I think I worked with him up in Indiana. And there was a show, I don't know why we were up in Indiana. I didn't know if our TV went up that high, maybe because it was only maybe 50 miles from Louisville. But it was the university that Larry Bird went to.
Okay.
And we put on a match here, and we were playing basketball beforehand, me and Bill, before the crowd ever come in. And we were playing two bonds, playing against each other. And I was like, "You are really short, man." But we had a match that night together, so
they need to be
easy.
taping
I mean,
that.
he called it, and made the match and the show look good. I didn't have no problems working with him, even though he was like half my size.
As entertaining as a wrestling match between Bill Dundee and Goliath sounds, basketball game between Goliath and Bill, they needed to have been recording that. That had to be.
It only just me and him. There's some other guys come in on on the game too. We all started. Who could shoot a 3-pointer? Who could dunk? I could dunk, but not after I got into wrestling so much. But I still did it. I did it at a match down in Mississippi. We were in the gym, like 60 yards away from the ring. And they said, "Can you do it?" And I took off. I was in full boots, gear. I was ready to go out to the ring. And I went up. I dunked it, but man, I think I gave it a little shock to the knee, gave it a little snag, I guess you want to call it. But I wrestled that night. And then Bill, in fact, that match, Bill chased me around the whole 100 yards of this football field with a cattle prod.
Oh God!
Because hey, if I got up on you, I'm going to hit you with that. Sell it. So I'm turning my back to him, and I'm like, talking to somebody else, and man, he hit me with that cattle prod, and I went running. I said, "What? He's live, man!" That thing. I go, man, no wonder cows move when they get hit with that. And I started running. And I look over my shoulder. He's right behind me. Chasing the hell out of me. And I kept running. I'm thinking, he ain't getting me again. So I kept running. I could hear him giggling. And everybody got a big kick out of it. When we got Memphis or whatever, everybody, "Oh, you were funny running around that field, you big man. You were running for your life." I said, "I was. Don't think I wasn't. I thought he was going to hit me a couple more times with that damn thing,
Oh, that's hilarious.
No, he was good. I liked hearing his stories too. Him and Jerry the King Lawler. You get anytime you were anybody around that was in the business for a while, it was so great to sit next to him and listen to just a story or two.
Yeah, and
to get little insights on matches. Of what to do, and it was always a little psychology in any conversation you had around him.
Yeah. The amount of money those two drew together in Memphis as both partners and opponents is just unparalleled. It's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah. I always respected them too. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. Another guy you worked with, it was pretty early in his career, Tracy Smothers. What do you remember about Tracy?
Great guy. I have no problems with him. Never did. In fact, I liked working with him. We had some great matches together, but I broke my leg in the ring with Tracy up in Louisville.
Oh, I didn't realize that's who you was in there with when that happened.
I was and Richard Lee, who became the Moondogs manager, he was the referee.
Wow.
So, and then here, later, he's the one that called me to become a Moondog. I'm like, well,
yeah.
So, what was actually going on there? But yeah, I was in the ring with Tracy, and I went to slam him in the corner, run at him and slam him in the corner. He moved, and I said, "Okay." When I turned around, hit me with a drop kick. Well, my leg must have got stuck in the what do you call it? The tarp.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my leg out, and he hits me with another drop kick, and I looked and see where the ropes are, and I tried to fly back and catch him, so I didn't fall on but I missed the ropes and I fell right on my leg. My leg snapped. It was definitely stuck on something,
Yeah.
But, I seen some things. I would never think Tracy was like that because he seemed like a really nice guy. And he just wanted to make it in the business, just be anybody else, And I heard stories that he, hurt a lot of people when he did it purposely. I'm like, I can't remember. I don't remember him doing anything to me. I broke my leg. I don't think Tracy had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Because he looked even more, I guess, surprised and worried that I did break my leg in the ring. Because when Richard Lee went over to him and said, "Hey, his leg's broken," I went around, Richard Lee's shoulder, looked at me, and his eyes were real big. And he said, "No way," And I said, "Hey, dude, I don't know what to do." I said, "How are we going to finish it?" I was supposed to win.
Yeah.
But I said, I can't move. I said my leg was like thumping. It just hung like an old sock off a line.
Yeah.
dangling, you know. And I said, hey, tell him to pin me, get it over with, you know. Now I was supposed to take 10 straps from the fans. And I looked at Randy Hales. He goes, you got to take 10 straps. I'm on the gurney. He goes, you got to take 10. I said, the first person hits me with a belt, I'll get up off this gurney. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'll be really big.
Now, Goliath, I know your legs broke, but the stipulation is a stipulation, brother. You gotta take
yeah. And then, what helped was the two paramedics. They're like, hey, look at his leg. He's been sticking out. You know, he snapped that damn thing. You can't make him go get snapped. He's on a gurney. You know, that's bad.
I just imagine you go in the hospital like, well, where'd you get all these welts? Well, after I snapped my leg in two, they whipped me with straps. Who? The fans.
Well, he took the straps down in Memphis. So as we were talking about how the matches were basically the same, this time he was supposed to lose to me up in Louisville. And he took down in Memphis. He walked, and he had 10 fans there. And one fan whacked him. He didn't even flinch. He didn't even sell it.
Yeah.
Everybody else was giving him, like, girls, and some of the other guys were just giving him a little whack with it, you know, like you're playing around with your wife or your, you know, best buddy. You don't want to kill him, you know. And I was like, wow, that one dude, Bubba even went, damn, he didn't even sell that. I go, man, they're going to beat the hell out of me when they get to strap me, which I'd never got it. So, you know.
Memphis was infamous for those straps and give the fans straps matches and all that kind of stuff, which is scary thought. But
I guess it was sending people's belts. I guess hey, you got a belt? Come on back.
You're in.
You're in. We'll pick you.
Couple other names. Rocky Johnson. You worked with him some there in Memphis. How was Rocky?
Oh, Rocky was good. Yeah, he was, I guess, getting near the end of his career. He didn't really want to do too much. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the matches I was winning with him, he choke me in a corner. I'm thinking, man, you know, come on. You know, this is you and Soul Train. You know, it's supposed to be, you know, you're the champs now. You know, make us look bad. You know, but and then Randy Hales come up to me to one match and he goes, "What the hell's that? What did you call that?" And I go, "Hey, he told me to choke him in the corner. I didn't, you know." I said, let's go. I'll throw you another corner and splash it. No, stay here. Just keep choking me. So, you know, it takes two. You know, it ain't I can't put the blame on me, Randy. That's what I told him. Don't blame me for that shit. I'd do anything you want me to do in that ring. You know, but hey, Rocky was a great guy in the locker room. Some good stories. And then I got to meet The Rock when he was 15.
Yeah.
I signed a letter of intent that night. He come up to me and he said he was going to be a linebacker. I couldn't say. I bet you he didn't weigh more than 150 or 170. He was a skinny little kid, really.
Yeah.
And linebacker? You mean cornerback? You know. And Rocky goes and gives me a nice hard shove. What are you talking shit on my son for? And I never got to meet The Rock after that. You know, I never got this when he got into business. I was done with it. I was working, you know, as a bouncer and everything else. So, you know.
Who would have thought that skinny kid would go on to be one of the biggest, not just wrestling stars, but stars in general?
Yeah, bless him. I mean, he had the background. He had a lot of wrestling talent in his family. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, you know, we've just talked about you broke your leg. You was out of the business for a while. You come back. We talked about it last time pretty thoroughly. Moondog Splat with, you know, Richard Lee. And we talked about some of the issues of the spot along the way. In 91, as Goliath, you went on a tour of Japan, teamed with the Warlord, the Barbarian, Chris Adams, Tito Santana, worked with some pretty big names in Japanese wrestling over there. How was that whole experience?
Yeah, Haku was on there.
Yeah.
Me and what's his name? You just said his name. Chris Adams. Me and him tagged together over in Japan, and me and the Barbarian, and then the Warlord. That was my 3 tag, and then my other 2 matches were with the champ. They were grooming to be the champ of this league over there, you know, SWS. And,
you know, coming from Memphis, how different was the style over there? Did you enjoy that style better than the Southern wrestling style, or indifferent?
Yeah, no, I don't think it was that much. You know, I know that the crowd was different. The crowd just sat there. You could do a high spot from the ceiling. And if you fell to the ground, it wouldn't get up for it. Only for that. If you did, it'd clap. They clapped like they were at a movie, And I was always like, "Is he wrestling out there?" Because I was in the back of the locker room. I opened the door like, I thought this match had started, and I opened the door. I go, "Oh, yeah, they are." I said, "Man, these people are quiet." He goes, "Yeah, they don't get up until you guys fall out of the ring or something like that. That's the only time they stand up is if you get outside the ring."
Yeah, it's strange watching this because you hear that polite applause, and then something big happens, and you'll hear big, "Ooh." Collective, like that.
The whole crowd, it goes in unison. But as a Moondog, it was great to go over there because we could chase the people. We come out and we start walking to them. They would take off running, and people leave their kids, their purses in the alleyways. I'm like, hey, you should have grabbed your kid. I can see you leaving your purse, but your kid, But it was a lot of fun. I had some fun over there. Made some good money. I was hoping that I would get called back for that, after 91, but I never got called back. Something big happened. Guy exposed the business. That guy they were grooming, and he was supposed to go against Earthquake
or something like that. Yeah,
I forget his name, but he was a rival against Earthquake. When Earthquake was a sumo wrestler, they rivaled each other a little bit. I guess I don't know if they ever. I don't know if he just didn't like him, or after Earthquake got going, they had I guess a problem between each other. And
I think that's what I heard was exactly what you said.
He looked like
they were legit rivals in sumo, and he didn't like the way the professional match was booked in Tenta's favor. So he cut that promo on the mic and exposed the whole business. And it was like, what are you doing, dude?
Well, that happened with Doug Gilbert and Eddie. They were jerking us around as the Moondogs, me and Spike. And I didn't really. I'm thinking. Then when I got most of the story, the rest of the story, then I realized, they are. I guess we do have to leave. Because it ain't worth staying here. Because they're bringing in this other thing here, and they're making us lose every match. So So Doug and Eddie exposed over there too. So they took off their masks in the ring. Hug each other and all. I remember laughing at the locker room about it, but then we were gone the next day. We had our flight, and we were at the airport.
You don't come back from that. You don't go out there and take your mask off and expose everything and flip the cameras off and come back the next night. So
and we were supposed to go back to Memphis, but then Bill called. Spike called them, and they said that their guarantee was lower than before. I said, "Well, I ain't going back for that guarantee. Nah, there's got to be something better than that."
Yeah. Times were tough around that time in Memphis.
Yeah, it was really falling off. Yeah.
And we review some of those shows on my other podcast, and you see guys come in and they're there for a couple of weeks and then they're gone. And like the other guys doing the podcast, like, why did they just come in for a couple of weeks? I'm like, they made the loop, they got that first paycheck, and they're like, hell no, we're not doing this. Most of the case.
And you've seen a lot of the guys when they got their paycheck. Some of the guys have been around for a while. See their faces turn. I'm like, I know you're making more than me, brother. Don't make a face at your check compared to mine, But I guess they shorted them or whatever, And that happened a lot in the Indies. Hey, I'll give you 200, and then all of a sudden at the end of the match, you're going to collect your pay, and they only give you 150. I'll give you 50 the next time I see you. I'll add it on because you're wrestling next month. Did I get the other 50? Yeah, eventually. 3 months later, But I wasn't going to go back down there for that type of guarantee. It was well under what I was used to getting.
I don't blame you because it's like it's not like you're just doing the Mid-South Coliseum and that's it. You're making all those towns, and it's. I mean, some of the figures I've heard people say, I'm like, how the hell did you even afford to make the trips with that kind of money?
I made way more money back in Pittsburgh. That was another reason I said, heck with it. I mean, with my job as a bouncer, manager of the bar and nightclubs, and I made way more. I wanted to make way more too in the WWF, but it never happened. So that's another reason why I said, hey, I'm not doing it for that type of money. I said, I can go back and stand at the door, and I have the belt every night. Nobody takes it from me, except for maybe one of my other guys I was bouncing with. Could,
right.
We had a couple guys. One guy was the power lifter. He benching 600 pounds and stuff like that. And I went to the gym with him a lot, and he worked as a bouncer with me. So,
you had some of those guys that were local to Memphis that had good, like King Cobra and guys like Jerry Bryant who had like FedEx jobs and stuff. And they would just come do Monday night, come do the TV on Saturday. But they had a job where they made good money and they weren't having to, do the road and everything. I see how those guys could do it. But yeah, if you could make more money in Pittsburgh as a bouncer, why are you going to go there and take all that abuse to your body and not know what money you're going to get?
I also bartended, so I can make some money on it, with tips and stuff like that. But just the bouncing alone was more than what I'd make a week down there. But I was always with the hope, Vince is going to call me, or WCW is going to want somebody, and it never materialized. So
in '92, you did a dark match in Cincinnati, WWF TV tape, and worked Tito Santana. How did that come together, and how did that go?
Well, I mean, Tito wasn't happy about it because I don't think he wanted to do the dark match. I said, Tito, you don't want to go in the ring. We work together, over in Japan, And he goes, well, not that. And he goes, and he walked away. And I guess he tried to get off of it, but then the next day was the bigger spot. I don't think he had a problem with the first match, but the next night in was it Lexington? I think it was Lexington. He was on the card again to wrestle me again, which I thought, if I had to wrestle him again the next night, the next day, that I wouldn't make it. That's your sign that if you wrestled, a non-jobber, we'll put it. You're not going to make it. But the next day, I wrestled Chamberlain, a guy from Cleveland, and I thought I was going to get in. Next thing you know, I was getting paid, and bye. So I don't know what happened. I don't know what transpired, because Vince walked up to me after my match, handed me my stuff. Great match, and I'm like, I didn't think it was that. I said, man, I didn't think it was great. It was good, because it was against Tito,
Yeah.
And then it seemed like everything changed after I seen him at the gym the next day. He goes, how much? Where do you, what do you do? How much do you, work out? And I said, I work out every day, but I said I work a lot of hours. I said, before I came here, I was a bouncer, worked 16 hours a day sometimes, But Vince, it just seemed like I went up to say thank you, and he just dissed me off. Well, thank you for coming. I'm like, I went to talk again. He interrupted me again. I'm like, well, dude, I don't, I'm just trying to get a job, man. I think you can come up with a gimmick.
Yeah. Well, it seemed to me like a couple of years earlier than that, at least, you would have been just a perfect opponent for Hogan, right up his alley of all the one-man gangs and, all the different big men. Even if you just came in and, like Kamala and just had a run with him around through all the towns, you'd have banked a shit pile of money off of that,
Yeah, Jimmy Hart tried to get me in. He talked to me. He kept looking at me in the locker room up near Pittsburgh. And I'm like, what the heck's he looking at? And then all of a sudden he goes, hey, man, I think we could do something with you. Hogan would love you. And I'm like, I wish Hogan would love me. But, never happened. I called after that tryout in Cincinnati and Lexington. I called Jimmy back, and it was like, who are you? Well, and I go, I explain to him, well, the Knights of the Round Table don't know what's going on. They're still making decisions. And when I called back the next time, he didn't get on the line. So I just said,
Yeah.
And that's probably when I went
could
back
have been, right?
Yeah, that's when I did the Moondog thing.
Yeah. One other match I was going to mention.
Sneak in the back door. I think I could sneak in the back door being a Moondog.
Yeah, because they had their eyes on it. They were sending, like you said, Savage and Kurt Hennig and all these guys were coming down, and Men on a Mission got signed out of there. So yeah, it was definitely a possibility.
As I talked to Fred, Big Bubba, That was one of the big things that helped him was Hulk Hogan. It could have been that him and Dusty Rhodes were brother-in-laws at one time, but Hogan really, he told the story they come up to him and said, "Hey, you're going to be a sailor man." So he goes, "What do you want me to be between Brutus and Popeye?"
Yeah.
Which I thought was a funny thing for him to say. I looked at Bubba, yeah, well, you were like Brutus and Popeye. He was a strong dude. Bubba probably still a strong dude.
Yeah, I remember saying that as a kid. Like, he looks just like Brutus, but he's doing Popeye's gimmick. Mm-hmm. Like, it's perfect crossover there. Well, man, that's
put up some weight.
Yeah, he's like I said, he was up there, and I thought, man, Goliath won't be far behind. And
I was training with him, and he was doing almost 900 pounds on a squat, and I mean a full squat, benching over 5. I mean, he was strong at everything he did. He'd go, "Come on." I'm like, "Come on, man. I can't. You think I'm going to lift them 10 plates, brother? Forget it, man. I'm stuck at 6. You want me to go 10? I can't go from 6 to 10. You're crazy." But, I mean, he kept me going. I will say that about Bubba.
I was lucky enough to meet Fred a couple of times, and just one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. I was really proud for him going in the WWE Hall of Fame last year. And it's just one of the people that you're happy for. Like, he really deserves it. It means something to him. Some of the guys get up there and it's just, their night, payday or whatever. But,
he was like when we rode together. Yeah, when we rode together, it was great because I was a rock and roller, metal kind of guy, and he was old. What's that? What do they call that? Motown.
Oh,
he was into Motown, and he had a couple tapes with Gladys Knight, the Supremes, and I can't think of half the other names now. But he had every tape from Motown in his car. We'd sit there and he'd get into it and start singing, and we're going around. I'm looking at him like, "What the heck?" Look over. You really like your song, huh? But then I started catching on. I started liking it too. So
Wow, that is a fun image. You guys rolling around listening to Motown. That's awesome.
He had that Jeep. We had a couple trips with that Jeep, and it was only 2-seater, and then he had like a truck bed.
Yeah.
And we were riding somebody home that one. I said, I'll sit in the back. I've done this before. I said, just give me your coat. Give me your coat, and I can go back here with my coat on. I'll be warm. I'll sit right next to the window here. I'll just open a crack here so a little bit of heat comes out.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many miles we drove that night, but I stayed in the back the whole way. So
that's rough.
His Jeep was rough. That thing was like riding like over potholes that were 3 foot deep. Every bump you hit, you'd hit your head off the ceiling, and my knees were in the dashboard. So was his. It was just a real tight. I go, why would you buy this?
Yeah, that's what you said earlier. The Jeep. I thought, you two guys in a Jeep. Oh my God, like that would be miserable.
It was
my wife used to have a Jeep,
Scrambler or something. It was like a Scrambler. It was called.
That's what the ones with the bed were. The Scrambler.
Yeah, that thing was, and it was a stick. So no, I already knew how to drive a stick, so we definitely change, driving times. And most of it, I said with it after a while. I said, I'll drive all the time, brother. I said, he just started falling asleep instantly as we got on the road. I looked over one time, his head was down. I'm like, oh man! I said I wanted to drive, but I said I'll get some sleep on the way down. And I had the steering wheel in my hand, so he wouldn't jerk it. He said, "What are you doing?" I go, "What are you doing?" Because I felt the car moving to the left. I thought, man, the way it was looking, we were heading right for this bridge embankment.
Oh my God!
And we were still good, 1,000 feet away from it. That's why I looked. I was like, "Come on, dude! I don't want to die that way." But we always had a great time traveling. So there's always something funny that happened. Getting a speeding ticket or something stupid. It was always something.
Well, man, I appreciate your time. It's been great talking to you. And I want to remind everybody, you can come and meet and hang out with Goliath, Moondog Splat, Bubba White at the KAYFABE Cave. It's 110 South 1st Street, Pulaski, Tennessee, Saturday, August the 23rd from noon to 3 p.m. Go ahead, Don't wait till you get there. Go ahead now. Pre-order your meet and greets, your pictures. That way, if the one you want isn't sold out, go ahead and get it done.
It'd be great to be back in Pulaski, that's for sure.
Man, yeah, we're all looking forward to it. And we will see you then, my friend.
All right, Gene. Take care.
All right, buddy. Safe travels down there. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.
Listen up, you bunch of slack-jawed flea market freeloaders. If you think you know Memphis wrestling, you don't know nothing till you've heard the Retro Wrestling Review podcast, brother. Every week they're talking the real stuff. Lawler, Jarrett, PG-13, yeah, and even my Moondogs. Watch along, stories from the road, interviews with folks who were in the thick of it, brother. The blood, the beer, and the bail money. It's all on the Wrestlecopia Podcast Network. Go to USWApodcast.com or I'll come down there and I'll slap a taste out of your mouth.
Moondogs are howling, the moondogs are howling, the moondogs are vicious and mean. Tonight the moondogs are looking for trouble, and you can hear it in their scream. So stay out of the swamp, 'cause the full moon is shining big and bright, and you might run into a moondog and meet your fate.